Ahmadiyyas and India's citizenship debate, no return ticket for partition architects. Written by Rakesh Krishnan Simha. The history records Muhammad Ali Jinnah is known as the man who divided India and founded Pakistan. However, that dubious honor should go to Muhammad Zafrullah Khan, an Ahmadiyya lawyer who was the secret brain behind partition. Backed by the British, Khan submitted the outlines of how India should be divided, resulting in the first country to be formed on the basis not of a common ethnicity or language but religion. This little-known historical fact is relevant today, more than ever, because in the backdrop of the marginalized Ahmadiyya community facing religious persecution, economic boycott, social ostracism, and lynchings in Pakistan, India is being gaslighted to provide refugee status to the approximately 1 million Ahmadiyyas. On March 12, 2024, India implemented the Citizenship Amendment Act, which expedites citizenship for Hindu, Sikh, Christian, Buddhist, Zoroastrian, and other religious minorities facing persecution in 3 neighboring countries, Pakistan, Bangladesh, and Afghanistan. The law does not extend to Muslims because they are a majority in these 3 countries and also because they are the ones who are systematically persecuting non-Muslim minorities. However, the cabal of liberals, communists, and Western governments, whose sympathies do not extend to the sufferings of religious minorities in Islamic countries, are trying to meddle in what is a purely domestic Indian issue. Their hypocrisy is glaring. For instance, the U.S. State Department says it is closely monitoring how this act will be implemented, while at the same time, on the Gaza war, its stance is that Israel is a sovereign country that makes its own decisions, and the U.S. does not dictate to Israel what it must do. Rooting and rioting for Pakistan. Let's jump straight into the Ahmadiyya role in partition. Here's an excerpt taken from www.alislam.org, the official website of the Ahmadiyya community, describing their leading part in India's breakup. Incidentally, the content has been pulled from the site, but the author saved the page's contents back in 2014, and it is also available on Reddit. The page was likely deleted to hide their role as warriors of Islam. In a bid to garner sympathy for their cause, the community is now hiding some of its sordid history as it attempts to portray itself globally as a peaceful and benign sect. Excerpts. History bears ample testimony to the fact that Ahmadiyya Jamaat was at the forefront of the creation of Pakistan. When the British decided to partition the subcontinent into 2 independent states, Hudhor made useful suggestions for safeguarding the interests of the Muslim community. Given the disagreements amongst the Muslims of India, Quaid-Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah had taken up permanent residence in London. Through his representative in London, Maulana A.R. Dard, Hudhor urged Mr. Jinnah to return to India to lead the Muslims in their political struggle. Dard was an Ahmadi Muslim writer, missionary, and political activist for the Pakistan movement. He also served as the Imam of London's historic Fazl Mosque, the premier gathering place for Indian Muslims regardless of denomination. In March 1933, Maulana Dard met Mr. Jinnah in his office in King's Bench Walk, London, and invited him to the mosque to give a talk on the future of India. Maulana Dard succeeded in getting a promise from Mr. Jinnah to return to India and resume the leadership of Indian Muslims. Upon his return, he started the movement for the creation of Pakistan by uniting the Muslims under the banner of the All India Muslim League. By the grace of Allah, Mr. Jinnah's efforts were blessed with astonishing success. Hudhor gave moral, constitutional, and financially, Sikh, support to Mr. Jinnah in carving out a homeland for the Muslims now called Pakistan. Farid Ahmad, the self-styled National Foreign Affairs Secretary for the UK's Ahmadiyya Muslim community, corroborates that Dard is known for convincing Jinnah to return to British India and fight for the Pakistan movement. According to him, Dard played perhaps one of his greatest roles in the service of the community and indeed all Muslims of India. This was a historic role that resulted in the creation of a new country, Pakistan. Had Maulana Dard not succeeded in his task, Pakistan may never have come into being. So significant was this event. History records that Muhammad Ali Jinnah quit the Indian political scene out of frustration. He retreated to London after attending the Second Round Table Conference in 1932, where he established his legal practice. But his destiny lay elsewhere. Hudhor instructed Maulana Dard to get in touch with Jinnah, who was a very resilient man, and try to persuade him to return to India and take up, and fight for, the cause of the Muslims. Dard told Jinnah that, if he did not return to Pakistan, he would be remembered as a traitor. Jinnah asked Maulana Dard what he meant by referring to him as a traitor, and Maulana Dard explained that there were two kinds of traitors, those who are traitors to their country and those who do not hearken to the call of their people when the people are in need of them. This hard-hitting dose of reality disturbed Jinnah very much, and within 3 hours of talks, Jinnah was persuaded to change his mind and accede to Maulana Dard's request. Dard's role was publicly acknowledged by Jinnah in a public statement at a reception at the London Mosque, in which he said, "The eloquent persuasion of the Imam left me no way of escape." In his expose of the British role in dividing India, Pashtun nationalist leader Abdul Wali Khan elaborates on the secret role played by the aforementioned Muhammad Zafrullah Khan, the Ahmadiyya member of the Viceroy's Executive Council. Seeking a way to split India into two countries and not satisfied with the plan submitted by Jinnah and Chaudhry Remat Ali, a student of Cambridge, the British asked Zafrullah Khan to submit a map of two dominions. He is anxious, however, that no one should find out that he has prepared this plan. On that subject, on March 12, 1940, Viceroy Linlithgow wrote to the Secretary of State for India, "Upon my instruction, Zafrullah wrote a memorandum on the subject. Two Dominion states. I have already sent it to your attention. I have also asked him for further clarification, which, he says, is forthcoming. He is anxious, however, that no one should find out that he has prepared this plan. He has, however, given me the right to do with it what I like, including sending a copy to you. While he, Zafrullah, cannot admit its authorship, his document has been prepared for adoption by the Muslim League with a view to giving it the fullest publicity." The Viceroy explains why Zafrullah's involvement had to be kept a secret. Since Zafrullah was a Qadiani, he had to be cautious. The Muslims would become irritated if they found that this scheme was prepared by a Qadiani. Role in the Kashmir War. In October 1947, just 2 months after partition, Pakistan invaded Kashmir, drawing Indian forces into a full-fledged war. Mirza Basharuddin Mahmud Ahmad announced the armed struggle for the liberation of Kashmir. Concerned when no one put their names forward from the villages, he sent a message, and the person delivering the message told the villagers that they could not imagine how concerned Ahmad was about Kashmir. He added, "I have brought the message saying, get up and offer your sacrifices for the Islamic world." The person who carried the self-styled Khalifa's message at that time said, "A lady stood up and said, I am astonished and filled with shame to see that the message of the Khalifa is before you and you are not moving. I have got one son, and I offer him with the prayers that God Almighty should grant him martyrdom, and I should not see his face again." The Khalifa narrated this incident in his speech and said, "Look. I tell you, taking God as my witness, that a cry immediately issued from my heart when I heard about it, O Allah, if a sacrifice of human blood has been decreed for this cause, then I beg that you take my son as a ransom for the son of this lady." Such was the enthusiasm with which the Ahmadiyya Muslim community fought the jihad of freedom for Kashmir. The official Ahmadiyya website doubles down on the community's role in the violence unleashed against Hindus and Sikhs by the Muslim League before and during partition and proudly declares it would be done again if the need arose. The Ahmadiyya community of Pakistan was the only one that raised a volunteer corps called the Furqan Force to fight in Kashmir along with the Army of Pakistan and thus carried out jihad by sword in practice. Several young men of the Furqan Force became martyrs in this fighting. Thus, when the time came for jihad by the sword, the Ahmadiyya community participated in it at once, and should the conditions of jihad by the sword arise again, the Ahmadiyya community will, God willing, not hesitate to discharge the obligation of jihad by the sword. Should the campaign. In the northern Indian province of Uttar Pradesh, there was a large section of Muslims known as Malkana Rajputs. Hindu influence in their customs and beliefs was widespread, to the extent that they worshipped idols despite the fact that they were Muslims. During 1922-23, the Arya Samaj started reconverting them to Hinduism. As a result of this Shuddhi campaign, thousands of Malkana Muslims came back to their Hindu roots. As soon as Ahmad learned of this, he launched a counter-campaign. Thousands of Ahmadis offered themselves to do the missionary work for a period of 3 months entirely at their own expense, at the expiry of which they would be replaced by fresh batches of volunteers. They traveled to Uttar Pradesh and started the missionary work with great zeal. Ahmad appealed to the non-Ahmadiyya Muslims to make common cause with the Ahmadiyyas and fight the Arya Samaj. He made it quite clear that the Muslim effort should be directed toward strengthening the faith of the Malkanas in Islam and that no sectional advantage should be sought to be derived from the situation with which they were faced. Ahmadiyyas, anti-Indian to the core. On December 30, 1906, the Muslims of India led by the Ahmadiyyas founded the All India Muslim League, whose primary aim was the breakup of India and the creation of a new Islamic country. Having accomplished the task of organizing the Muslims, Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad, the founder of the Ahmadiyya movement in 1889, held a public gathering in which he advised his followers, "You must have little to do with the Hindus. If the English leave this country, they would tear the Muslims into bits and pieces." In his last book, titled The Message of Peace, Payamai Solha, Ahmad supported the two-nation theory. Anyone can easily understand why the Muslims are skeptical about joining the Hindus in the demand for their political rights and why they have avoided joining the Congress, although they entirely agree with the truth and necessity of making these demands. They fully appreciate the political sagacity of the Hindus and have, like them, asked for their rights. But they have demanded their rights separately and refused to walk hand in hand with them. The reason for this, gentlemen, is faith and nothing else. Classic victimhood. Against the backdrop of the discriminatory views held by the Ahmadiyyas, it is clear why the CAA excludes them and other Muslims. For, in the Islamic nations of Pakistan, Afghanistan, and Bangladesh, the various Muslim groups not only do not oppose the persecution and marginalization of non-Muslims, they enthusiastically practice discrimination against the hated Kafirs, unbelievers. It is only when one of these Muslim groups, like the Ahmadiyyas, become the unfortunate victims of Quranic injunctions that they wear the cloak of victimhood and start soliciting the sympathies of the Kafirs they so openly vilified in the past and certainly despise in private currently. In 2023, the Jamiat-e-Ahmadiyya Pakistan produced a report saying the situation in Pakistan is becoming worse day by day for the marginalized community. Ahmadis are facing persecution at the hands of the evil elements. The acts of desecration of the places of worship in various areas of Pakistan continue unabated. It is a new norm, and the authorities are doing nothing. It is hardly a new norm. In the 1953 Lahore riots, Muslim mobs killed up to 2,000 Ahmadiyyas. In 1974, Pakistani Prime Minister Zulfikar Ali Bhutto declared Ahmadiyyas non-Muslim through a constitutional amendment unanimously and without abstentions. In 1984, the Islamist military regime of General Zia-ul-Haq made it unlawful for Ahmadis even to call themselves Muslim or practice their faith openly or recite the Azan, the Muslim call to prayer. The law has also meant that Ahmadiyyas cannot vote, for in order to vote, they have to sign a declaration accepting they are non-Muslims. Following the 1984 legislation, the Ahmadiyya leadership was compelled to leave Pakistan. The so-called Khalifa fled to London, where the community's headquarters was eventually moved. Today, to get a passport or even an identity card or to get married, a Muslim citizen of Pakistan is required not just to make a positive affirmation of his faith but must abuse Ahmadiyyas to prove his Islamic bona fide. As a popular American saying goes, they made their bed, now they must learn to sleep in it.